Have you thrown up in your mouth today? If not, don't worry, because you're about to hear a Bible story so outrageous, so absurd, so immoral, that you are bound to throw up in your mouth at least a little. Our journey begins with the tales of a righteous man. At least that's how the Bible describes him. What you need to know about this righteous man is that he goes by the name of Lot, and he's a family man. Being blessed with a beautiful wife and 2 daughters, Lot was a happy man. But all of that changed in the blink of an eye. The day had come when tragedy struck. Lot and his family were fleeing from the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. They almost made it out unscathed, but it would appear that Mrs. Lot was either terrible at following instructions, or she was suffering from attention deficit disorder and just not paying attention. We might never know the reason why, but that doesn't change the fact that she went against the command of the angels by looking back at the burning cities. This is the part of the story where things get real salty. As she violated that command from the angels, her body instantly transformed into a pillar of salt. And just like that, poof, she was gone with the wind. As you can probably imagine, this left Lot in a lofty predicament. After fleeing from the ruins of Sodom and Gomorrah, he and his 2 daughters shacked up in a cave. After getting settled in at their new home, the realization of everything that had transpired over the last few weeks had finally begun to sink in. And with that, Lot began the grieving process. But he knew that he had to be strong. He knew that he couldn't just sit around the cave all day in his underwear, crying over spilled milk because he had no cows. He couldn't be sitting around crying over spilled salt either. Like any other man, Lot happened to like women. Lot liked women a lot, and now that he lost his woman, Lot was in a real pickle. But Lot wasn't like every other man. Lot had 3 things going for him that allowed him to persevere. I'll tell you about 2 of those 3 things right now, and then we'll look to some very special verses in the Bible to reveal the 3rd one. The first thing he had going for him, as you will soon see, is opportunity. So when the opportunity presented itself, he was able to quickly take advantage of it. The second thing he had going for him was his standards. His standards were literally non-existent. The guy probably would have mounted a billy goat if you put one in front of him. Now, let's turn to the Bible for a moment and allow God's word to set the scene and paint a picture of the opportunity that fell into Lot's lap. Behold Genesis chapter 19, verses 31 to 35. One day the older daughter said to the younger, "Our father is getting old, and there's not a man left in the country by whom we can get pregnant. Let's get our father drunk with wine and lie with him. We'll get children through our father. It's our only chance to keep our family alive." They got their father drunk with wine that very night. The older daughter went and lay with him. He was oblivious, knowing nothing of what she did. The next morning the older said to the younger, "Last night I slept with my father. Tonight it's your turn. We'll get him drunk again, and then you sleep with him. We'll both get a child through our father and keep our family alive." So that night, they got their father drunk again, and the younger went in and slept with him. Again, he was oblivious, knowing nothing of what she did. You know what they say, a family that prays together, lays together. Perhaps it's just Lot's family that says these types of despicable things. Who knows? By the way, we're not even close to done with this, so don't even think about going anywhere. And I haven't forgotten that I promised to tell you about the 3rd thing that Lot had going for him. We'll get right to that, but first, I want to circle all the way back to the first question you were asked in this video. Have you thrown up in your mouth today? Please do let me know in the comments, and if your answer is in the negative, I definitely require an explanation. Now, let's briefly talk about the 3rd thing that Lot had going for him before we get into the really fun stuff. The answer is very simple. Just like Lot, his 2 daughters were ill. Of course, we are not saying that there was anything wrong with them physically. Perhaps the size of their brains was significantly smaller than most human beings during those times. However, I'm sure that these scallywags changed that by giving birth to cute little retard babies that grew up to be even bigger tards than the 2 daughters were. If you're following, these tards did their part by populating the earth with even tardier tards. Let me take 5 seconds to wrap this up for you so we can really get started. Lot lived in a cave with 2 women that he made. I mean that literally. They were of his seed. Because of that very blessing, he contributed to this world two specimens that inherited his non-existent standards, low IQ, and most importantly, the tendency to keep it in the family. At the end of the day, you've got to tighten up that bloodline, son. Moving on, I need to point some things out. First, recall the last verse ends stating, "He was oblivious, knowing nothing of what she did." I don't know about you, but I think most drunks are going to know that something isn't right if they're hooking up with their daughters. So what was it? Was this dude smoking crack? Not even crack is powerful enough to make one so oblivious that they are not aware of the fact that they are in a cave engaging in incestuous acts. Mind-boggling, isn't it? Let's start with something that's a little bit easier to understand. With that said, let's just say that Lot is sober. Let's say that this sick and disgusting old man is fully aware of what is going on and decides that he wants some daddy-daughter time. Well, make that times 2. After all, we want to be accurate here. We would then quickly come to the realization that based on several factors, the events that the Bible unfolds never occurred. They are mere fairy tales. Allow me to explain. We have an old man. We are discussing events which unfolded during biblical times. This can only mean two things. 1, Viagra has not yet been invented. 2, Cialis has not yet been invented. One or the other, potentially both, would be needed in order for this sick tale to play out. However, the tale that the Bible would have you believe also requires you to believe that which has been proven by science to be impossible. The Bible wants you to believe that an old fart like Lot is able to naturally develop a boner. Not only that, it wants you to believe that he developed this boner with the intended recipients being his daughters. Now, Lot could be some sick righteous creep that's into some seriously sick shit. So let's pretend for a moment that he is some superhuman freak that can get his pecker up at the age of 98. Let's suppose that he is turned on by his own kinfolk. That still doesn't explain how he is able to be turned on enough to get his pecker up while he is completely oblivious as to what is going on. I would go as far as saying that the Bible is implying that the old man was asleep while these incestuous acts were taking place. That said, can anyone please explain to me how it was possible for these two father-buckers to not only excite the Viagra-less old man in his sleep, but also to get him to blow his load in his sleep? I would just argue the positions that Lot's daughters were so stupid that they were literally only sleeping with daddy and believing that laying next to him would impregnate them. Unfortunately, I do not have the luxury of arguing that, as the Bible is clear in revealing that the two incestajos did indeed get pregnant. The only way to believe this is to have a lot of faith. So suppose that you do possess that kind of faith and that you fully believe this narrative to have gone down in the way that the Bible describes. We're talking about God allowing these animals to not only reproduce, but also to create life forms that would be even lower in intelligence than these dipshits. Incestuous relationships have severe biological repercussions. The science of genetics has shown us that diversity in genetic material leads to healthier and more resilient offspring. When close relatives who share a significant amount of their genetic material have children together, this diversity is greatly reduced. This lack of genetic diversity can lead to a host of health problems. In a study published in the American Journal of Human Genetics, scientists found that children of first-degree relatives, such as siblings or a parent and child, are at a significantly increased risk for life-threatening disorders such as heart defects, spina bifida, and certain types of cancer. The risk is so high that these children have a 50% higher mortality rate than children born to unrelated parents. Moreover, the risk of mental retardation is also increased in children born from incestuous relationships. This is due to the increased likelihood of inheriting rare genetic disorders that can affect intellectual development. A study in the Journal of Medical Genetics found that the risk of severe intellectual disability is nearly doubled in children of first-degree relatives. Now, let's take this knowledge and apply it to the story of Lot's daughters. They deliberately chose to have children with their father, fully aware of the close genetic relationship. Was this a wise decision for their future offspring? They chose to create a bloodline already flawed with low intelligence and enrich it with retardation. Do you want to see a follow-up to this video where we explore the lives and stories of the abominations born of these incestuous acts? Let me know in the comments below.